Hello everyone. Have a nice day. Hope everyone having. I was watching some of the panels, especially the last one before this, and I think in general the topics are very relevant to what I will discuss today. We talked about BitVM, the risk of BitVM, and like the different side of BitVM bridges and like OPCAD. And actually, I'm using most of these conversations in my presentation. So for start, I want to talk about why Bitcoin needs ZK. So in the beginning, let's start with like very short primer on ZK rollups. We talked this about a lot in previous conferences and like the podcasts that we do. But in general, basically, this is a life cycle of a transaction in a ZK rollup. So basically, having Bitcoin here is important because now being a ZK rollup on Bitcoin means that you are actually posting your data to Bitcoin together with your ZK proofs. And why we are doing it is basically we provide cheaper transaction fees and potentially more features while maintaining the same level of security, because it's essentially mathematics and Bitcoin consensus again. Just like having Bitcoin consensus alone, adding ZK doesn't add much trust, especially in different kind of proof systems. So this is basically how a ZK rollup would work on Bitcoin. But why we are building the ZK rollups is more fundamental questions that we should ask. And in general, we think that the most secure way to scale Bitcoin is basically sharding its execution with verifiability and data to inherit Bitcoin security guarantees. So the ZK proofs are kind of succinct compressors for your data and for your process. So building a ZK rollup means that you have almost another blockchain, like a virtual blockchain, where you compress all the inputs and outputs and the execution into a one succinct proof, so that proof can actually be embedded in Bitcoin, so that we can inherit much of the security guarantees coming from Bitcoin, such as if we build a ZK rollup on Bitcoin, we inherit Bitcoin's double spending guarantee, we inherit Bitcoin censorship resistance guarantees, and the one probably like the best thing about this is it allows adapting any execution environment, because essentially what Bitcoin sees is just the ZK proof, and what you prove inside is not a concern for Bitcoin. So you can even embed EVM just like what Citrea is building, or you can build any other VM that you want inside the ZK rollup. And I think the other important point, which is very relevant with the previous panel, is these ZK proofs allows you to build trust minimize or trustless bridge depending on the state of Bitcoin. So the ZK rollups inherit Bitcoin security, but how to solve that old two-way peg problem that we've been talking about for almost a decade? The main thing about rollups is they initially designed on Ethereum to build a trustless bridge between the base layer and these new blockchains. So there are a couple things that a developer do here while building a ZK rollup. First, you build a ZK verifier in the base layer scripting language, and then you have a state-carrying smart contract that can actually verify the ZK proof and then move the next state route. And you should also have obviously a withdraw function where people can call this function and move their funds to the L1 again. And today, how we do it on Bitcoin is BitVM. So on Citrea right now, we have this BitVM component where we utilize to actually settle our ZK rollup to Bitcoin, so that we can have a trust minimized ZK rollup where we can move our BTC from Bitcoin main chain to Citrea very easily. So basically, BitVM is optimistic challenge response protocol, where it allows to verify a ZK proof in an optimistic manner. And it also emulates a covenant, basically using an N-of n multisig. So that with these assumptions, we can actually build a ZK rollup bridge with one of an assumption instead of the traditional honest majority assumptions that comes with multisig bridges, such as sidechains or moving Bitcoin to the Ethereum. This is also a very basic schema to understand how actually Citrea does this. We have an aggregated meta ZK proof we call light client proof. And that is basically a compressed version of Citrea. And in a single proof, that proof actually represents the whole history of Citrea, where you can get the data by utilizing Merkle proofs. And that proof is the thing that's getting verified in BitVM, so that Bitcoin can now actually understand whether what things happened on Citrea and what things didn't happen on Citrea. So in the future, again, like the last panel, if we had OPCAT or like OPZKP, another like hypothetical opcode, if we had, then we could actually build these CK verifiers in a trustless manner so that we don't have actually the one-of-n trust assumption. So in general, I think the technical parts of it is very, very clear, but there's much more fundamental question that we should ask. Why do all of these? Like why we are doing all of these technical stuff like the BitVM, ZK proofs, rollups, and what's the goal here? So the Bitcoin is initially created to serve as money, and money basically serves the three main functions: store of value, medium of exchange, and eventually the unit of account. And there's an economy around money basically involving everyday transactions such as payments, the international interactions, investments, supply chain, peer-to-peer lending, crisis relief. A lot of things is actually enabled by money. And collectively, we call these things economy. And we believe having an on-chain economy actually increases the financial inclusion for everyone by naturally, because now we have a permissionless system where everyone can equally access to this economy. And so let's check like where is the on-chain economy happening nowadays. And like the biggest exchange by volume is obviously Uniswap and Ethereum, and the biggest lending is happening on Ethereum again. Payments probably on Tron. The prediction markets, obviously Polymarket is leading on Polygon, and the decentralized stablecoin, they not so decentralized anymore, but still it's leading on Ethereum. So as you can see, none of these economies are actually happening on Bitcoin. But previously, all these primitives actually tried on Bitcoin. This is a quote from Joy Krug, one of our investors. And he basically stated that it's not super well known, but back when we are starting Augur, we tried to building on top of Bitcoin. So Augur was the first ever prediction market launched on Ethereum. And actually, the co-founder, Joy, says that they initially started this idea to build on Bitcoin, but they couldn't because there weren't enough tooling to do this. Very similar case with Vitalik as well. He wanted to launch Ethereum on Bitcoin. It was almost an Ethereum, I would say. It was a scripting language, not actually the EVM, but he wanted to launch this idea first on Bitcoin through some, back then, an old layer called Mastercoin, but he couldn't do it either. And actually, the lesson here is all of these primitives were tried on Bitcoin, but there was not enough infrastructure to build all of these. But clearly, there was a demand to build all of this stuff on Bitcoin. So with Citrea, basically what we are doing is creating the foundation for Bitcoin apps. Citrea will provide the best DevX and user experience to people to use actually Bitcoin. You don't have to hold an L1 UTXO, or you don't have to deal with opening channels, or you don't have to go with custodial encashments. We can actually provide a much better user experience to the Bitcoiners and like new Bitcoiners as well than the existing landscape. And the developers, they are not forced to build on other blockchains, because Joy, Vitalik, they were all forced to build on other chains, such as Ethereum. He created Ethereum, and then Joy built on top. But what if we could all of these on Bitcoin? Then why build on another blockchain? So this is basically how we started to build Citrea, because users don't have to make a choice between giving up on Bitcoin or relying on fully custodial applications. This was the core idea behind Citrea, and all of these technical things that we try to do, building rollups, building the ZK technology, building on BitVM. The reason for all of these is to create a better infrastructure for Bitcoin so that both developers and users can actually benefit from these. And the market is huge. Like the Bitcoin dominance is almost around 60%, but Bitcoin DeFi is very, very small compared to the rest of the ecosystem. And the non-Bitcoin things are almost like at 40%, but the DeFi there, or the economy there, more importantly, is much bigger than how Bitcoin is involved in this economy, even if you include the payments happening on Lightning or eCash or like some of the other smaller Bitcoin layers. And we believe that Bitcoin apps have the potential to push Bitcoin dominance even up, as well as bringing more Bitcoin into the on-chain economy. Because this is eventually a limitation to get new users, new holders to Bitcoin, because they don't want to open these ugly Bitcoin wallets to hold their UTXO, or they don't need an on-chain fund to open a Lightning channel. They could just open their very consumer-oriented wallet and get their Bitcoin, and then now they're another Bitcoin holder, which will eventually push this dominance hopefully to 100%. And to do all of these, basically, we launch Citrea Origins. It's a community of select developers who are building Bitcoin applications. I personally think that Bitcoin applications are 10 times more important than Citrea itself. It's more important than the infrastructure. It is more important than BitVM, more important than ZK proofs, because they're eventually the end goal, how Bitcoin should look like, and we are just trying to provide the best infrastructure to make them possible. That's why we created this incubation program to accelerate hyper-Bitcoinization. So Origins is a community of select developers collaborating closely with Citrea engineers, marketers, ecosystem builders to scale Bitcoin apps from 0 to hundreds. So you already see the Twitter handle there. You can follow the progress there. If you are building something on Bitcoin, you can always DM me or any of my teammates. We are happy to help you go through the Citrea ecosystem, onboard to the Citrea ecosystem as well. So I will sum up, and what we are saying here is we want to have a Bitcoin-backed economy, and while doing that, we don't want to rely on custodial MITs for privacy, custodial vaults for payments. We don't want to go to custodial lending desk to borrow against our Bitcoin, or we don't want to even use custodial exchange to buy Bitcoin. With Citrea, we can actually do all of these in a non-custodial manner, and to me, this is the only thing that actually matters. We can have non-custodial pools for privacy. We can have programmable wallets for payments. We can have decentralized money markets to borrow against our Bitcoin even more efficiently. And we can have non-custodial exchange to buy Bitcoin directly to our wallet without having any intermediaries in between. That's why I and all of our team is building Citrea, because we have a very clear goal: accelerate a Bitcoin-backed economy and eventually reach to a hyper-Bitcoinization. So this was all about my presentation. You already see the Twitter handle and our webpage there. You can visit. And like I said, if you're a builder, want to build something on Bitcoin, feel free to DM me, and I'm happy to answer all your questions. What about Citrea, the ecosystem, and all of the technical things that blocks you.
Thanks so much, Orkun. Really appreciate your presentation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.